Welcome back to episode number 556 of Surf Splendor. My name is David Scales. If you're not watching 100 Foot Wave on HBO, you should be. And that's whether or not you're interested in surfing. I have found this to be the most compelling surf documentary in some time. The initial concept of the series centers around the surfer Garrett McNamara and his quest to surf a 100-foot wave at a spot that breaks right up against a cliff in a small fishing town called Nazare in Portugal. Season 1 premiered in July of 2021, and then Season 3 just debuted 2 weeks ago on May 1st, 2025. You can catch new episodes on HBO on Thursdays. Through the 3 seasons, we've seen the town of Nazare transform. We've seen other surfers attempt to follow in Garrett's footsteps. Some have risen to the occasion. Others have been conquered by the sea. Everyone in the series gets injured. One surfer actually dies at this location. That was during filming of season 3. I think that's featured in episode 2. We've also seen the McNamara family grow, and we've seen Garrett in his mid-50s not only get the recognition that the surfing world never quite fully gave him, but actually supersede it to the point where he's now one of the most recognizable surfers on the planet, right alongside Kelly Slater, Laird Hamilton, Bethany Hamilton. Garrett's wife, Nicole, is an equally important figure in this series, so she will be joining us in today's show, as will the series producer, Joe Lewis, who funded this show from its inception with director Chris Smith, who had just come off of the wildly successful Netflix series Tiger King. Joe Lewis's other credits include Amazon Prime's massive hits Fleabag, which is one of my all-time favorite shows, and also Transparent he was responsible for as well. So the first half of the show will be Garrett and Nicole, and then the second half of the show will be Joe Lewis learning about how all of this gets made, how he sold it to HBO, and how he's ultimately cracked the code to make surfing interesting to the mainstream. But first, let's not forget that my work here on Surf Splendor would not be possible without the support of the Surfrider Foundation, Veyer Watches, and Real Water Sports. The ocean needs more friends, so go to surfrider.org to become a member. Veyer Watches outfits the entire North Shore Lifeguard Association with their durable and great-looking American-assembled timepieces. Mine actually runs on solar power. We will save you 15% off your timepiece by going through VeyerWatches.com/surfsplendor. And then RealWatersports.com is your one-stop retail shop for any and all of your water sport needs. They have a 1,500 surfboard inventory. They'll ship it to you anywhere on the planet for one low flat fee. So learn more at realwatersports.com. And then without further ado, my name is David Scales for Surf Splendor, and I hope that you enjoy my conversation with Garrett and Nicole McNamara.
Surf Splendor.
I interviewed Liam, your brother, back in November of 2024, a few months ago. And you and Liam are the only 2 people I've interviewed in a decade who conducted the interview lying down in bed.
That's
hilarious.
Oh my goodness.
And I'm sure he did not listen to or see yours and mine. Like, he didn't do it because you did it. You guys just randomly are the only 2 dudes.
They both have shirts on, or was one of them shirtless?
I think Garrett was shirtless.
Liam shirt on. Liam's scared to take his shirt off.
I mean, to be honest, I think there was an injury maybe. Like, there was a reason you were in bed. It wasn't just you were lazy.
21. Yeah, something happened.
There's always an injury, right?
Oh, broken foot. Yeah, broken foot.
There you go. There you go. So there's the distinction for you. So in that almost 4 years, I guess, we recorded it. It was right when season 1 was coming out, or had just come out. Maybe a couple episodes were out. So I'm just curious, in that 4 years that's lapsed, what has changed about your life?
Well, we moved to Italy, and you'll see that at the end of season 3. And then we went back to Portugal, and now we're back in Hawaii, and then we're going back to Italy in September. So a lot of moving around, a lot of working on figuring out where's best for the children. and where it's best for Nicole and I. And we kind of finally got everything pretty nailed down. Like I feel really confident with all of our decisions going forward from here on. We're going to spend 1 year in Italy, plus minimum 4 months, 1 school year, possibly half school year for sure, maybe the whole school year. And then we'll be back here in Hawaii and we'll be gardening and just really nurturing the land here and helping this land to thrive. And then we might work on a project in Kauai. Just been what's changed is we have a lot of clarity right now. I have a lot of clarity. I had for the last 5 years, there was no clarity. I didn't know where we were going or what we were doing next. I had no idea. We were flying by the seat of our pants.
Why Italy?
School for the kids, the best school we could ever find, and the best food, all organic, all free range. Every single thing that we eat in that town that we're in is perfect.
Can you say what town you're in?
It's super food, super fuel all day, every day. It's called it's the town it's in Piedmonte, which is in between Milan and Torino, and then what's the name? Casale Manfrotto is the actual town that most people know close to us, but we're in Montaldo, and it's Village Forest School, which you can Google it and it pops right up. Village Forest School, Italy, Piedmonte,
Amazing.
Torino. Yeah.
Amazing, dude. Congrats on finding that.
Well, the school has an English teacher and an Italian teacher in every class, and it's an outdoor school. They're in yurts and stuff, so it's really cool. Thank
Maybe
you.
maybe we'll join you. My wife and I have considered making radical life change for quality of life reasons. So,
They do a summer program that a lot of our friends are going to. When does the summer program start?
Oh, the summer camp is all July.
All of July. I think our house is rented, right? Our house is rented out, or we gave it to, yeah, we let you stay in our house, but somebody's there. But there's houses in the neighborhood that you might be able to get.
okay, cool. We're actually vacationing there in September, but
Oh,
she
wow.
she lived there for a year, probably 8 years ago. So she has a fondness and desire to go back, and I'm totally open to it. So,
We'll be there in September. That's when we get school starts.
oh, okay, sweet. Maybe I'll reach out to you.
Yeah.
Um, so talking about things that have changed in your life, I was also just wondering kind of about the celebrity status. I feel like you've you gotten famous in that period of time. And I'll tell you a story. I was interviewing Liev Schreiber for something else, and he
I
said the
love
only
Leo.
he said the only time he's been starstruck in recent years was seeing you at a fashion show when you guys first met.
We became best friends now. I love that guy. Every time I go to New York, we work out or we hang out or we walk the baby. We just did a grand opening for Sun Life Organics in New York. We let him know he was there, first customer. They're like, no, we'll take care of you. No, I'm paying. I want to be the first paying customer of this establishment. I love that guy.
That's amazing. Yeah, I was surprised to hear him say your name. I thought he'd mentioned some celebrity, mainstream celebrity or something. But he was basically what he said was, he's like, acting's not hard. Like, I know how to do it. There's no real risk, and I admire it. It's cool and everything. But what I saw Garrett doing on HBO blew my mind. So I thought that
He
was cool.
actually, don't tell anybody, he's more interested in my wife.
Oh, really? Well,
Just as a friend, platonic.
it's
Just
probably
because she's
not,
such an amazing human.
I'm probably not the first person to say this, but yeah, she is the breakout star of the show.
For sure.
I mean, totally is. Like, I say that not in jest. Like, what you guys are doing is kind of like fanatical, but what she represents the voice of the audience, basically. Camera cuts to her and she's like, these guys are insane. He should not be going back out. We need to get to the doctor. Whatever it is, it's like, yes, finally somebody with a voice of reason.
Nicole, you hear that? Because we watched episode 2 and it was tough because she was kind of tough on me. And I was like, oh, you're a meanie. And it was really hard for both of us after that evening, just because she doesn't want to come across as a meanie, but she's the voice of reason.
She's not.
She's not mean, she's being Real,
practical.
practical.
She's got kids to look after, and she needs you
Yeah.
there with her. So
Yeah.
I would say she's not being mean enough. My wife was watching it with
You're
me.
not being mean enough, he says, Nicole.
Well, my wife was watching it with me and she was like, "You'd be done. Like there's no additional questions. You would be pulled from the water. You're not allowed to surf again." So I think she
Oh,
went tame on you.
well, she's gonna love hearing this because we had a tough evening.
Yeah, I would imagine. Um, a friend of mine uh sent me a podcast that you guys did, I guess, about your relationship. It was like a relationship podcast. And she said that Nicole was alluding to how you guys met, but never really told the full story. And it seems like a great story. Are you willing to share that here?
Yeah, I can share a version of it.
Okay.
It's funny because that was the couple something, or what was the name of that?
Love Fest.
Love Fest.
Yeah, yeah.
So they do this game where you gotta guess the things about your spouse, like what would be their last meal? What would be this? What would be that? And she's like super competitive. The newlywed game. Newlywed game. Come on in here.
She could
You
tell
mind
it.
jumping
Yeah.
with us? He loves to. He said I'd be done already. No more surfing if it's his wife.
It was a newlywed game.
Okay.
5 questions that it's the same questions for each person, but you have to answer them how the other person would answer. So of course you would think I would win. I mean, come on.
With your memory and nobody's ever got them all right.
Yeah,
Okay.
that was
Okay.
the other thing. No one has ever gotten them all right. This guy here got every single question right.
No way.
And he was asking, like, what was my first job as a kid? And he remembered.
First, the animal or whatever. Yeah, there was a bunch of good ones. Anyway, yeah. So he said his wife
I
said,
remembered quite a few about him, but like, for example, they asked your last meal, and Garrett loves pot roast. So I put pot roast, and you know what he wrote down as his answer for himself? Rice and beans, his last
Oh
meal.
my gosh.
So he kind of threw me under the
Yeah,
bus.
I've seen that happen on the Newlywed Game before. Well, my
How we met. Hold on, don't avoid the question.
oh man, I thought I got out of that.
or Nicole can answer it if she's better equipped. Whoever.
So we were at I went to Puerto Rico to take my dear friend Izzy Paskowitz has a foundation called Surfers Healing. And his child was diagnosed with autism at a very young age. And the only thing that really calmed him down was the ocean. So he saw this profound effect that the ocean had on his child and decided to start a nonprofit to cater to, it's almost more catering to the family, but it's taking the child out and getting them surfing. And
It's very therapeutic for the kids.
was very therapeutic for the child because sometimes they eye contact for the first time, speaking for the first nonverbal speaking for the first time, smiling, showing emotions for the first time. But as the person help facilitating the experience, it's a emotional roller coaster because the parents are on the beach and they're in tears and the kids are doing these things they've never done. And we're all just having a great time surfing, but we're also crying of tears of joy and tears of sadness for the families because, first of all, they don't have anywhere they can take their kid. When there's somebody's having a party and you have an autistic child, they don't invite you to the party. So you don't really have anywhere to go except wherever you take them yourself. And then we have this day for them, for the family and for the children. So we were doing that in Puerto Rico. And the night before the event, there's a charity dinner, and Nicole's there for a paddleboard race. She was a top paddler. She was winning races back then, stand-up paddling. And her dad's friend was a florist who she was staying with, who was doing the flowers for the event on the table settings. And then she was getting ready for her race, and Ernie's getting ready to go to this charity dinner, and Ernie's girlfriend's like, "Come on, Nicole, come with us." And she, no, I need to train. I need to rest. I'm gonna stay home. And then somehow they talked her into going. She's like, "I don't have any clothes. I'm not gonna go." And she put her into some nice dress and put some pheromones on her, some pheromones that work really, really well. And now she shows up at this party, and I see her across the room all by herself, just standing there.
Big introvert.
She's trying to say she's an introvert, but she's always making up stories anyway. You want to come finish it? So I see her across the room and I'm like, whoa, who's that? And I noticed that Ernie was just with her, and then he came over by us, the florist, who's also a big wave surfer. And I'm all, who's that over there, Ernie? And he goes, ho, ho, ho. And then he's like, Nicole, come over here. And she came over and we met, and yeah, the story goes on and on. But we met at a charity dinner for an autistic
His
event.
wife's not going to be satisfied with this story.
I mean,
Here,
did it feel like love at first sight is
he's
the
gonna finish
question.
it.
Was it love at first
It was
sight
100% love at first sight.
for Garrett? It took me about an hour.
At first, I was just some creepy
Ernie
old-
calls me over and he's like, "Oh, this is Garrett," and I didn't know who he was.
Her dad did.
And Garrett used to do this like floppy fish handshake for women.
The worst.
Yeah, the worst. And this little side kiss. So I'm like, oh my God, I gotta get out of here. Who's this guy? And then the evening proceeded, and for some reason they had Garrett on stage doing like the opening talk for the dinner or whatever. And he says, "Thanks to all you people, we get to touch so many children."
I'm like, and as soon as it came out of her mouth, I went, what did I just say? Holy shit. And she still, that should have been an even bigger red flag.
I was like, really, who's this guy? And then after they had a reggae band, and I was again by myself, minding my own business. And Garrett comes over, and his one line was, "Do you surf?" And I was like, "Yeah, but I really stand up paddle." And then I sat down next to him, and that's the end of the story.
No, she asked me, what do you do? And I said, I surf. And then she said, no, really, what do you do? Somehow I figured out how to get people to pay me to surf. That's what I do. But she didn't believe me.
And then I would say within 5 minutes of us talking, it was like, for me, 5 minutes, love at first sight type thing. Like, he's just the most charismatic, attentive,
Hanging on her every word.
kind. Like, he's just this pureness to Garrett that I don't know. And then it was just this energetic force of we had to be together. But then the night progressed, and he's like, "Oh, do you want to go to this after party?" And Ernie was going to the after party anyway, so I was like, "Yeah, sure, I'll go."
We'll drive you.
But he invited me, and then I come out of the bathroom and he's running away, like trying to climb through a barbed wire fence through this cow field in Puerto Rico.
Literally scared shitless.
Oh, really? Running away?
Running away from me. And I'm like, yo.
Hey, where are you going? You don't just invite somebody to a party and run away?
Yeah. So I made him go to the party, and then he got scared.
Ran away again.
He ran away. But then that was it. Like, we kind of said goodbye. And after my race, we're driving in the car with Ernie and his girlfriend again, the one that put the pheromones on me. And Ernie's like, "Who the heck's calling from Hawaii? Who's calling me?" And Camille's like, "Oh, it's Garrett. It's Garrett. Answer the phone. He probably wants to talk to Nicole." And it was. He conveniently got bumped on his flight in Fort Lauderdale, which is where I live, where I grew up. And yeah, so then he was there when I got home. And then my dad is a big surfer, so I grew up in the South Florida Longboard Association's club.
Okay.
And the guy who runs it was like my uncle, practically, from the Big Island, Hawaiian. So Garrett called him. Everybody found out Garrett McNamara is in town. So then it was this big thing, and
she caught the wave of the day.
I did. And then he had to leave, And it was like,
Never seen each other again.
we might never see each other again, but then he said, I might, I have to
friends
go do
are-
another charity event and I might end up in Vegas. And I was like, oh, my best friend in the whole world lives in Las Vegas. So he called me and was like, I'm in Vegas. So I called Maria and she's like, what the hell's going on? She's like, where is this guy? I'll go over and meet him and tell you if you should come or not.
It's all Maria's fault.
So Maria went and found him at like 3 a.m. at the Bellagio. And then
We had $1 million on the table. We were rolling. True story.
his friend, but the true story was we were both pretty broke. And then
Yeah, not my million. His million.
yeah, and then I went to Vegas and then I literally ran away. I left my life. He left his life. We had
Nothing like a penthouse suite at the Bellagio for a week. To seal the deal.
one backpack and each with our clothes, and for
And
3
no
years
money.
we had no home, no money, and we just traveled around.
Couple sponsors pay me like $500 a month. That was about it.
Wow. What were these
Here
what were these pheromones?
Well, it's really funny. You know, like how people have Tupperware parties?
Yeah.
Camille would have sex toy parties.
Say
And
more.
I guess the pheromones was
Part of
one
the
of
sex
the
toys.
Tupperware items you could purchase.
What was it though? I mean, like, what is the elixir? Is it
Like,
Okay, so whatever it was, cartoons back in the day, and you would show the cartoon character see
It
something
was
across the room and his jaw would drop on the floor,
and
yes?
lift up.
lift up and levitate. Well, that's how they were. I don't know what it was, but that's what they did to me.
All right, well, put me in contact with the sex party thrower.
Yeah.
Sex, not sex party.
Oh, sorry. Whoops. Sorry, my mistake. The pheromones had their effect virtually on me right now. So I interviewed Joe Lewis last week, producer
Nice.
on the show, and he told me about the call that he received from you guys pitching the show originally. Do you guys remember that call, and what was the pitch?
Well, we remember clearly.
So we were at a point in, I don't know, we were like, we were doing another documentary with a really good friend of ours, and it fell apart. So I was like, that's it. I'm taking this situation into my own hands, and I'm gonna do this myself, and I'm gonna get an Oscar because I wanted to do a feature length
1.5 hour
documentary, really focusing on the human spirit, of course, yeah, but it would be basically going around Garrett, Cotty, and CJ, because each one of them had horrific accidents where they were told, you're never going to surf again. Like they told Garrett, like, your arm is done, like you're not surfing. And through, perseverance and tenacity and faith and a million other
things that happen.
And not just believing what everybody says, but just the story of the human spirit and following their journey of overcoming what was deemed impossible.
She pitched that she called her cousin.
I was going to do it myself because we had an amazing production company,
Portugal,
like filming in Portugal. I knew I could do it like underground and go do film festivals and all that. I knew that was possible, but I knew this deserved, I wanted it to reach the world. I wanted to inspire everyone that anything is possible, and you don't have to live this life that everybody tells you have to be successful, or, like follow your dreams, because each of us was born for a reason. And if we don't follow our dreams, then we're not living our soul's purpose.
And not living passionately through our passion.
So I knew I wanted to be bigger than just the film festivals. So I called Yada, my cousin, who's married to Joe. And I said, I have this pitch, whatever it was you want to call it.
Two-pager.
And she's like, oh, well, Joe only does scripted TV.
Comedy and
But, talk to him. He might have some advice. So I talked to Joe and I told him, like, this is it. And
First thing he
I
said
want
was,
an Oscar.
no, you didn't say that. She did not say that. He said, this can win an Oscar. That was the first thing he said. And she went, okay, here, take it.
Well,
He
it took a
wasn't-
little while.
He wasn't like, I'm in. He was like, I'll help
He's
you
like,
if I
this is
can.
really good. I'll help. But then it got to the point where he's like, and I had 2 kids, a life. He's like, I'll take it on, I'll produce it. So
He called Chris Smith.
that was it. Then no, it took a while. Like he sent us a list of like 50 directors and said, oh, who do you like? He really kept us, we were still highly, highly involved. And then we took the call with Chris, and Chris was super intrigued and agreed to do it. So that's when we got Chris in. And
I went and watched Jim and Andy by Chris Smith, and that's what got me really excited to work with Chris. Then we're pretty much in bed, and then all of a sudden I watched Tiger King, and I'm like, oh shit, what's he gonna do to us?
But going off from the
I'm the
beginning,
Tiger King.
even with Chris, I made it very clear, like, I am not doing this if we're making a surf documentary.
Yeah.
Okay. What was the distinction for you between a
it's
surf
just-
documentary and?
Well,
Not hardly any waves. We said only the
Yeah.
biggest wave of the day and the worst
It has to
wipeout.
be-
All the stories
it
behind the
has to
scenes.
be the
you show what-
human emotion.
We told them over and over, if you show waves, you're gonna lose the audience. You need to show the best wave of the day and the worst wipeout, and that's it. Any more, you lose. Now, any more waves shown, another wave, channel changer.
Yeah. Fascinating.
For the average
For
person.
the average person. We already had all the surfers. We love all the surfers. We knew we had all the surfers. We wanted to get the rest of the world because the surfers are there. We want.
Yeah, of course. But nobody ever makes that crossover, like I'm always curious to see, I want things to do well in the mass market, like surf things to do well in the mainstream world, but they never are able to. And this has seemed to transcend for the reasons that I think you identified and the reasons you set out to make it. But another thing that I'm curious to hear your guys' thoughts on, did you happen to watch that Laird Hamilton piece that Stab Magazine did last week?
I saw little clips of it, and it almost got me to click, but I'm like, no, I'm not even gonna give this my time of day.
With Shane Dorian and him.
Yeah.
I couldn't figure
I
it
just
out.
saw the little thing on Instagram, but I didn't watch the whole thing.
Did he say something about Shane Dorian? I couldn't figure out.
So he and
Well,
Shane had kind
he
of
had-
ongoing beef in the lineup.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. And it would like translate from Jaws to then Cloud Break. They would continue the beef. And it was all just about Laird, exhorting his dominance over everybody else in the lineup and Shane not being willing to put up with it. But the reason I brought it up or asked you was one of the themes that they really discuss throughout the piece is the surf world never fully embracing Laird. The surf industry for sure, but even just surf fans never really giving Laird his due. And I was just curious I feel like Garrett's kind of been struck by that as well up until this, and now he's finally getting his due. But number one, do you feel like that
from the surf world?
Well, so do you feel like that?
Laird, I think, always got credit because he was just so much bigger and gnarlier than everybody, so nobody could actually relate to him and do what he does, but they all admired him. He got credit. He 100% got credit. I think any credit that he felt he didn't get, he might have manifested. I think he got full credit, and I think he was smart enough to go and work with companies that weren't surf companies.
And he did his own thing.
And he did his own thing. And that's what he was my mentor for that. I watched how he navigated. Yeah, I watched how he navigated the business world of surfing, and he went out of surf to corporate companies and bigger, more organized organizations who actually would utilize him to the fullest, and he would maximize his potential while working with them. Surf companies back in the day, I would work with the Don Joy knee brace company. The day I signed a contract, we did a photo shoot. They had their photos for the next 3 years. They didn't even have to talk to me again. They still did. They had me on all the trade shows. They had me here and there and everywhere. But they were so professional. They had everything running like a well-oiled machine. Surf companies, you sign a contract, a year later, you still haven't done a photo shoot, and you may never do one.
Yeah.
Shane, I didn't know they had a beef the whole time. Shane was Yeah, it's just funny because there was a group of guys who tried to disappear toe surfing. They
Right.
tried to squash it. And the whole time I thought it was just Greg and Twiggy. But now it must have been Shane as well.
I
And
don't
they
know.
got all the surf magazines and publications to write whatever they wanted them to write about how lame toe surfing is, so that because they weren't the best toe surfers. They couldn't win. They couldn't excel in toe surfing when I was out or Laird was out or whoever was out taking the waves that they couldn't get. So they decided to squash it.
Yeah.
I don't
I-
know fact, but my gut tells me it was Greg and Twiggy, and then I guess Shane was right there with them.
Don't lump Shane in, because honestly, I don't think that was his beef. I think
Okay,
in
cool.
Shane's
I never thought it was Shane.
in Shane's telling it, he was towing with Ian. And so Ian Walsh and Shane show up at Jaws, and Laird is basically just running circles around him, like not giving them a turn. And
Yeah.
and was able to do that with everybody else, and everybody did just bow down. And then Shane finally kind of put his foot down and was like, Ian, if you don't tow me into the next one and like block them essentially, we're no longer a team, you know? So then Laird, of course, puffed up his chest and was like, you guys, that's not going to fly. And so I think they just kind of butt heads for a period of time, and it all got squashed at Cloudbreak down the road somewhere.
I like that Shane did that, because that's what I do all the time. You better
Yeah.
frickin' step up or it's over.
Well, so I was curious if you did feel like you were kind of maligned by the surf industry as a whole, because you have followed Laird's kind of path in terms of working with outside brands.
I was just nobody for my whole life, and my brother Liam was the most recognized surfer in the world for about 10 years because he took over Pipeline and Rocky Point for 10 years straight. He got more waves than anybody at both of those spots, guarantee, bar none, and those were the two most photographed spots in the world. So he was the most publicized surfer pretty much for 10 years. He did not have a very good attitude, and he didn't have very many friends. He was blackballed. In the contest, they would definitely score him lower. He should have won a lot of more events. There's all these things that, I mean, you got to take responsibility. I feel like he brought it upon himself, but back then it was a totally different era. It was gnarly. It was all Hawaiians, and we had to he scrapped for everything he got. I actually kind of got along with everybody and had fun, and just went toe surfing to get away from everybody, to disappear. It ended up being a sport. Liam, I was under his shadow for freaking my whole career. It was
until you got that.
who's Garrett? Yeah. Garrett, who's that? Oh, that's Liam's brother. Oh, he must be an asshole too. He's Liam's brother.
Yeah.
That's what I lived under.
Yeah, yeah.
And then my father-in-law showed up when Liam disappeared.
How's it going?
Then he showed up when Liam disappeared.
Nice to meet you.
All over again. John's Reeves.
Well, I was asking you how your life has changed in the last 4 years. I'm also curious
So
if
as far as the surf goes, I always got along with everybody. People didn't know who I was and thought I was like Liam. Then they met me, and we had a great time together. And they, wow, you're nothing like your brother.
Yeah.
I focused on Japanese companies first. Then I focused on Brazilian companies next. Then I focused on corporate world, the whole world, and ended up in Portugal. So I didn't, I marched to my own beat and did my own thing, and went where there wasn't 50 other sponsored athletes. I went where I was the only athlete on the team. So I maximized my experience wherever I went. The only challenges I had was I tend to self-sabotage myself a bit by making bad choices until I met Nicole.
In the last 4 years since the success of 100-foot wave, what are the biggest opportunities that have presented themselves as a result of this?
Bro, I'm probably the only surfer ever to actually leave RedBull because I couldn't stand the fact of pimping poison on the world. Not just the children, everybody. If you see me drinking a RedBull, you're gonna think, oh, he drinks RedBull. That's how he became the best big wave surfer he could be. Wild Turkey came after us. Sorry, no. McDonald's want to do a huge campaign, millions. Sorry, no. Can't do that. There's definitely nothing that I want to pimp on people. Couldn't to be responsible for pimp and poison on people. I just, not in me.
Yeah.
We're very lucky because the companies that reach out to us, we get to evaluate whether they're aligned with our core values and what we stand behind. And if they're not, then there's a small chance we can still work together if they support all of our projects somehow. And if we can get in there and try to get them to do things in a good way and try to get them to change, that's the only way we can justify working with a company that doesn't share our core values. And even then, it's hard.
Yeah. So what have been some of the opportunities that you've gotten? I mean, financially, sure, like if there's a brand partnership or something like that, but has it also opened doors for other Hollywood calling or anything like that?
But I would say corporate speaking events has been a big one for us, and we always end up meeting amazing people through there, and it's just kind of this domino effect with all of our speaking engagements.
Super fun speaking engagements, sharing and learning. Those are some of our most fun events.
Yeah.
Nicole,
and they seem to flow consistently. Like we don't go after them. It's all just people reaching out to us randomly.
And we do them together. So it's so fun. We get to have a little honeymoon every couple of weeks or a couple of months for a day or two or a week.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I love watching you guys together. I feel like, there's probably risk also in working with your partner full time on all this stuff, but you guys seem to really enjoy each other's company.
We do.
That's good. I know, Nicole, you're working as the manager essentially. Has that been difficult learning curve?
Yeah.
She's just the handler. She's the handler.
They're like, what do you do? I'm like, I don't know.
She says, Garrett.
Yeah.
It's a lot. I mean,
Easy.
we have other projects too, that we're really working on. We started a foundation to provide surf therapy to disadvantaged youth
And sex trafficked teens.
Yeah. Like right now I'm like looking at a list of a million things. Lots of different projects and events, and yeah, it's a lot to manage.
A scripted movie.
And
we're working on a scripted movie on the life.
Yeah.
That's actually, we've been commissioned to do that. It's Lee, we might have to talk to him because I didn't think of him as a candidate, but now I do.
No, he's definitely
Yeah, he'd be perfect.
I got a note from Anna saying we had 5 minutes left a few minutes ago, so I'm just going to keep going until she jumps in and cuts us off. There was somebody that I wanted to ask you about actually. I think his name is pronounced Kahlil Rafati.
Yeah.
We love
So-
him.
I just was texting with him this morning.
That's a Sun Life where we were with Liev in New York.
Yeah. So I saw him in episode 1, and I know Kelly spends a lot of time with him, and then I saw you give him a shout out on Instagram. But who is he to you?
Well, we've known him as a
He's
couple.
our guru.
Well, he's the first guy we met together. Kind of a guru for us, somebody who we call when we have real deep questions and
All I know is
health and wellness. And
out of all the people though, like Garrett, when he had his shoulder injury and he was super depressed, or that time, but there's also times where Garrett will like start spiraling and I can't get him out of it because usually I can get him out of it, but sometimes he goes pretty dark. Kahlil is always the one that gets him out.
What is it about him, Garrett?
well, he just very
Gives him a perspective. I think it's the perspective Kahlil puts
yeah,
on
but he's
everything
also
too.
very high vibration, very uplifting, very complimenting, thinking of solutions, but also taking responsibility, also showing up. It's like he'll both sides of the spectrum he'll share and show you what he feels is the good way to go. And
His thing is 1% better every day.
Mm.
By the end
It's
of
an
the year,
achievable goal. Yeah.
he's not
65%.
for everybody. He's real. He's 100% real, no bullshit. A lot of people can't handle that.
Yeah.
But also then when it
And
comes
no
to like the
filter.
health and wellness part too, so there's like the spiritual emotional component of Kahlil, but then there's also the wellness physical part. And like he really and you'll see in that episode, like the only reason we were in Austin and Garrett was able to get the care that he got was
from
because of Kahlil. Kahlil
Set
set
it
him
up.
up with the neurologist. Kahlil had him at the gym with the trainer. You know, he really orchestrated him being in
Ready.
physical peak performance and spiritual to go back to Nazare
And get
Gotcha.
cut.
the way he did.
I like he's been interesting to me, and I see Kelly spending a lot of time with him, so I was curious to know kind of what
We
that was
were
all
friends
about.
first.
Gotcha. All right. Well, we've run out of time. Anna's jumping in on the chat, so I could go much deeper and longer, but save it for another time.
And you'll
Thank-
let us know when does this come out?
Wednesday. Wednesday. I'm going to cut it together with the Joe Lewis interview, and it'll come out Wednesday.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much, you guys.
Thanks.
All right. Good to see you again.
Yeah.
All right. Obviously, that's all the time that Garrett and Nicole had on a very busy press day, but I'm sure I'll have them on the show later. We have much more to discuss. So for now, we're going to go to the series producer, Joe Lewis. Enjoy. I'm just curious to know, out of my own curiosity, your level of surf kind of IQ or acumen prior to your involvement with 100-foot wave.
It's low.
Okay.
I'm the worst surfer who's been doing it for over 20 years. I moved out to LA to go to college and I was like, I gotta surf. Like, and within the first month I was in the water. And I think I've, probably gone once a year on average since. So I mean now, I know a lot more about surfing in the surf world, but it's pretty low.
His opinion is just totally my own and anecdotal, but I found the best examples of film that kind of feature surfing to be made by non-surfers.
Yeah, I think
Documentaries, that
there's
sort of thing.
Yeah, I think there's something to that, not just surfing, but I think when experts make something, it's different than people who don't know as much and are curious. And Chris, the director, is probably less of a surfer than me, and I think we're just super curious. And that if it makes sense, my only barometer is like, am I bored and does it make sense to me, and then do I want to find out what's going to go next? And also, I think the show's great because I think. I mean, even Garrett, if he looks at stuff, he always says, it's just too much surfing. Like, I think for us, it's an emphasis on character. And, I thankfully, like, even the characters in the show, I think see that. And, I think we always take a lot of care to make sure we get everyone's waves right, but I think it's
Sure.
not about, our goal is to like whatever amount of wave you need to keep the story going and look beautiful and, keep you invested in people, but less on the surfing itself.
Yeah.
A lot of times they'll be like, can't you tell that's the wrong wave? And I'll be like, that one looks amazing to be like, oh no, that one's shit. And then they'll put that wave and it will look better, but I'm still easily won over.
Yeah, that's true. Surfers have a keen eye to identify those specific details.
Yeah,
Can you start back all the way from kind of season one or pre-season one? How did the project
sure.
come to you?
Sure. It's a wild fluke. My background started in comedy, and then I did a lot of what you'd call premium scripted shows. So I produced Fleabag and Transparent and a bunch of other stuff. And I had only done a little bit of documentaries before. And as a fluke, my wife's second cousin is Nicole McNamara, and her other second cousin is CJ Macias. And Nicole, as you know, is married to Garrett. And I had always heard about this big wave surfer in the family, but I had never met them, hadn't talked to them before. And then one day, Yada just got a call. Yada's my wife. She got a call from, I think, Nicole, maybe it was both of them, and just said, we have this notion of an idea. Could we talk to your husband, me, about it? And they were coming out to LA, and we started, they had a notion of an idea about Garrett and CJ and Katia. They were all coming back from injuries. And now I sort of realize everyone's always coming back from an injury, but that was the seed of the idea, and started talking about it. And then quickly, Chris Smith, the director of all the episodes and executive producer, was someone I had known for a little bit, and brought him into the world. And he was curious and kept asking questions, and then wanted to direct it, and went from there. But truly, just one of those amazing lucky family connections.
Incredible. Yeah, that makes so much sense because I mean, I strictly deal in the surf world, and I find that there's so many stories that I think would have mainstream appeal. And
Yeah.
then you talk to various people who've written a book in surfing, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I was in, got optioned. I was in development for 5 years, and it got passed around. Nothing ever happened." So even though I think there's so much richness in the sport and in the characters in the sport, very few make it to this level. Certainly not to
Yeah.
this level in terms of popularity, but barely even go into production. And so,
Yeah, I don't know if you know and how interesting this will be to your audience, but there's a good story in TV how that happened. We skipped the development process. So, it's very, most TV shows, all TV shows are made by someone sets up an idea, takes an idea around to a television network, and that television network commissions it or puts it in development, as you're talking about, then commissions it. From the beginning, Chris and I just paid for the production ourselves. Later on, a studio called Topic got involved as well, but Chris and I financed the whole first season. So, I said we met Garrett and Nicole on a Zoom back in early first half of 2019, and 2 weeks later we started shooting the show, and we haven't basically stopped for 6 years since. So we really just, I think it must be part of the reason why the show's had such a good impact in the surf world and outside. But we just went for it. We didn't wait till we had all the information. I'm always afraid about making surfing metaphors, but we sort of were just like in position and both trusted our instincts, and saw this thing coming and got on it, and it's been going ever since. But yeah, we skipped the whole TV development process, went straight into production, and got so lucky as well. It's also just luck because I didn't know Justine, DuPont, Lucas Jumbo, Cotty, CJ, Kai Lenny, all these, all these amazing surfers, that have turned out to be incredible subjects and people. No idea any of it existed.
yeah.
Even the first 2.5 episodes of the first season, which was a lot of this footage. They had shot the first few years in Nazare. Didn't even know that existed when we started shooting. The fact that the first few years of this were covered came out of a hard drive in a closet that someone got because Garrett and Nicole were already in Nazare and sent it to us. And on this drive, we found this footage that they hadn't mentioned they had. So anyway, not exactly what you asked, but a bunch of surprises from the beginning of the show, but just started by just going for it.
Yeah, I mean, I was tracking Garrett's career, knew him way back then, and didn't see any of that footage until you guys released it. So, but
My
I'm also curious if you think that traditional production process dilutes the original intent of the project or the art itself. Like you not having to collaborate along the way and just doing what you wanted to do probably gave us a more pure version of the original vision, right?
Yeah, listen, I think the hard part is great things have been made in that process. So I
Yeah.
can't say all the time it's going to work. And I think for us, and in this instance, it was the best way to do it. And it's easy for me to say that. I'm working with a director like Chris, who's, made countless things, starting with American Movie and then for decades on. And I have a lot of trust in my own instincts about character and world, but it's partnering that with Chris's instincts on the same and his filmmaking abilities. So, um,
So it's a big investment, obviously, for you guys to commit to that.
yeah.
Once you start shopping it around, how quickly did HBO embrace the project, or how difficult was it to shop?
So, it was easy enough. We had made 6 episodes at that point. We had cuts of 6 episodes. We had spent a lot of time with it. We weren't rushing to get it out. Not to go into the process too much, but HBO was awesome. From the first second they heard about it to the first second we met with them, they liked the project. They were, in a business sense, they were just really quick about their offer. They said we liked it, and then we got a call and said, "Here's an offer." And also to their credit, they've made the show much better. We closed a deal with them. We gave them 6 episodes. They gave us high level feedback and have continued to since. And the show's much better because we're working with them. There were a lot of places, that liked it and other partners that are great, but HBO is just really passionate about it, which is what you're just always looking for in a partner.
How quickly did it find traction once it was on the network and airing?
That's a good question. I will say on this side, I've spent my time on the executive side. I worked at Amazon and, ran different parts of that TV business for a while, and I had a lot more info than I just know they're enthusiastic. They've always been quick about picking up the show and encouraging us to, be bigger and do more. So I get a lot, it's all anecdotal and qualitative feedback. I mean, a lot from surfers and a lot from non-surfers. And like just qualitatively, like it's amazing, if the fact that parents and kids and grandparents can all watch the show together, and the fact that all those surfers I named, Kai and Chumbo and Justine, all love it, and their friends tell them they love it. I don't know. I'm just um qualitatively, it's so nice to see
Yeah.
people react to it in the way that they are, and also just that the shows, now we're 17, episode 2 airs tonight of season 3, but there's 5 episodes in season 3, and the fact that 17 hours in, it continues to have that impact. I just could never have guessed that from the beginning, and honestly, the story could keep going forever, and will.
Yeah. Well, I think the show's phenomenal, and I feel like watching season 3, it feels like it's grown in popularity. Obviously, I don't see the numbers, but the
Yeah.
depth of the storytelling and the production quality feels like it's also gotten richer as well.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm just more invested as a viewer 3
No, I
seasons
just
in.
think it's a natural byproduct of like long form narrative.
Okay.
It's part of the reason I'm in TV and not movies, for the most part. I just love long storytelling. I love when you love something and it keeps going, and just out of that time, you can just go deeper into character and story, and there's things that just take a while to unfold. There's a part of season 3. Have you seen the whole thing?
I haven't, no.
So there's a part of episode 3 where there's a mission to Cortez Bank, and this part, it like really brings season 1 and the whole show full circle. When I learned about this while we were making it, and we're 5 years into making this show, and this like fundamental point of the story is just coming out, and it's coming out at the right time. So anyway, the narrative just allows you to find those things, and again, spending more time with, just use Chumbo and Justine as examples. Like they're so just inspiring and incredible and risk-taking and interesting and smart. And it's not, you can't, the first season was about Garrett and about Nazare and about the world there. But now that have this big piece of real estate, we've really been able to spend time with more people who are all, to me, as fascinating. And, as a whole, it just makes the whole thing more fascinating because they're different than Garrett and Nicole, and, have their own amazing stories and approaches to life too.
I mean, completely. And that's kind of why I started out by saying the surf world is so rich with characters, that you could go any direction you wanted to. If there was a caring lens put on any of these things, there's
Yeah.
unlimited stories to tell.
I mean, it is mind-boggling to me what the editors on our show do. I think for season 2, I think we shot 3,300 hours or something like that, and the show's 5.5 hours. I often think about, and we're racing through it, even though we have an extraordinarily long edit time, and what other stories are in there, what else we could mine. And now I think the shows are exactly what they should be, and magically they end up in just the right form. But there's just so much interesting stuff, and
Yeah.
that's what I love about season 3 too. We just naturally, we never said it'd be great to get out of Nazare, but then it's surfing. You follow the weather. The weather in Europe, that surf season was not great, and all of a sudden these other places, Hawaii and the Pacific and Morocco, other places started going off, and we could just naturally follow our curiosity and go outside that too. And yeah,
Can
it's
you
just amazing how it worked out.
can you distill when you were talking about that first kind of meeting with Garrett and Nicole, and then 2 weeks later you're
Mhm.
filming? Can you distill what it was about them or their story that wanted you to invest that heavily?
God, Garrett, Nicole, and CJ, and everyone are so good at talking in the show. I always feel like the bar is too high for me to hit when I talk about it. Yeah, it was following curiosity. Garrett is amazing. He is like endlessly interesting and endlessly curious on his own, and a whole mix of emotion and feeling. And I as a viewer, I think I watch the show and I always want to find out what Garrett's going to do next, and you just feel that way when you're with him and Nicole, and CJ's so smart and interesting. I don't know, I'm just instantly, I never got tired of hearing stories or talking about it, and maybe that's it. And maybe the time pressure. I mean, Garrett, the McNamaras were going to Indonesia, and we're going to slowly make their way to Nazare back in 2019, and we just had to start shooting. So again, like I didn't gather 100% of the info. Maybe, other people would have. We just thought they were interesting and thought it was compelling and just went for it. It's honestly, a lot of gut instinct, but also, you watch Garrett on the show, that's how he is in real life. That's how Nicole is. They're amazing together. And yeah, I did not overthink it, I will say.
I don't have a question here, but I'm going to just kind of share some thoughts and let you respond. I just think about you and your position with Amplify, where you're financing shows and what stage do you get involved in stuff and how do you identify talent or something that's worth investing in?
Yeah.
And juxtapose that to Garrett has been overlooked, by the way, in all of surf media for a very long time, for decades. Like,
it's a good thing I didn't know that at the beginning.
I mean, he's kind of been maligned, to be perfectly honest. And so it's amazing to now see him at the height of his career, at the state, late in the career, and getting the kind of adulation that he deserves. But that's why I was asking, like, what was it about him that you identified that everybody in the surf industry kind of just didn't care about for a long period of time?
I wish I could tell you.
Yeah.
I think it's the benefit of the show. I think Chris and I both have short attention spans, and it's hard to keep us interested.
Yeah.
We're both sensitive, or I'm sensitive to when I am interested, and I definitely feel it when something loses my attention. And yeah, I was not aware of that at the beginning. Didn't One of those just lucky things when maybe knowing too much could be a deterrent. I was just and very interested at the beginning, and say at the time that I met them, I was already trying to do independent television as a model separate than the traditional model of TV.
Yeah.
Chris, longtime independent filmmaker, again, since American Movie, to more than 20 years, to the point later than when we started 100-Foot Wave. So that part worked out really well. I was already looking to do it, and then this opportunity to do it came into my life. Again, not to overuse surf metaphors, but I don't know, like I had put myself in a position to make an independent TV series, and had thought through a lot why I thought that was, where television was going and what it was going to take to solve some of the problems in TV. And then this thing came, this wave came up, and, I was just able to jump on it. I think if I had just met them normally, I probably would have maybe just given them the advice they were asking for. But a lot of things just, I can't explain how it worked, but it just did. All came together.
I feel like the example of Fleabag or Phoebe Waller-Bridge, she was never going to be denied. Like, she's such an immense talent, but in the space that she works in, there's people looking for talent. There's a lot of eyes looking for that. And so she was just always going to be acknowledged. Garrett, on the other hand, just quietly toiled away for decades, but there's actually
think I always just want, I mean, Phoebe's brilliant, would have been brilliant no matter what she did. But I always, just wonder what geniuses are out there in every field that like haven't met the right person or the right time. And
totally.
And I'm convinced that some of the best or the best TV shows of all time never made it out of development, if they even made it that far. And sorry, there's like a ton of fire engines outside.
Zoom kind of cancels that stuff out. I can't even hear.
Give me 1 second. I can't even hear you.
Okay.
Right now. Sorry, what were we saying? Oh, yeah. I mean, also, listen, I was the first person at Amazon doing TV, and now they seem like a behemoth in the space. But at the time, you're just trying to get the amazing stuff that other people overlook. And same when I was a young executive at Comedy Central. And, I think one of the things that I just learned at the beginning of my career working at Comedy Central, which came out of this like MTV ethos, and a lot of people I worked for were there at the beginning of MTV, which is just like keep your eyes open for anything interesting. Hits can come out of nowhere, and they can end up being people that you haven't heard of can create the next big hit. And I think that's just been sort of a way that I've been lucky enough to work since. So anyway, had not thought about the connection between Garrett and Phoebe before, but it is definitely I found when you find those people, who are just geniuses, you just want to, stay on and try to do something, and, had similar feelings, about them and other people that I've worked with.
My favorite shows all match the description of what you're talking about, where kind of the example of it didn't exist prior. And then
Yeah.
somebody just kind of got out of the way of the artist and like Fleabag is certainly an example, but like Louis, back when that was on when that came out on
Yeah.
FX, like I'd go episodes without even laughing, but still
Yeah.
love the show.
Yeah. And also in
There's
a more boring way, all those things were made at a price where they could take a risk without people losing sleep over, and they all landed the plane. Fleabag started with an Edinburgh show and a inexpensive, taster pilot at BBC, um and this started with shooting for a month.
yeah.
And you just you keep testing things until they break, and neither of those things, to this point, I think have broken.
Well, it's worth stating, in my opinion, Nicole is actually the star of the show.
Wait, sorry, who?
Nicole.
Oh yeah, she's amazing. She's incredible. I always trying to get her to allow the cameras to spend more time with her. We don't set anything up, and we're just shooting everything at all times. And Garrett is always doing something, and it's very easy for a camera to go with him. But the show wouldn't work, wouldn't be the same. I don't think the McNamara's life, would be nearly the same without that relationship. And
I
yeah,
mean,
she's just incredible.
it can only exist with him kind of well, not only, but it works well with him as the protagonist, but she is the voice of the audience to me. She's like the only rational person on the show, basically.
Yeah.
Everybody else is taking these huge risks, and then it turns to her and she's like, he needs to cut it out. He needs to be more responsible. He needs to go to the doctor, whatever it happens to be, which
Yeah.
is exactly what I'm saying on the audience on this. So
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it comes across on the show like what kind of a superwoman she is. And just running that operation being the surfing and the family and Garrett, and doing so calmly. I mean, Nicole could have been maybe be a great producer. She's very level-headed and pragmatic, and yeah, really. And I'm not just saying that because she's family too.
you're right.
No, she's
um,
great. I think everyone brings. Again, I think if we weren't lucky enough to follow Cotty or CJ, I think the show would be different. And it's one of the things I like about the show is you just like get to look at many different dimensions of one business, and you're not looking at everyone who's does one job, or everyone who's at one level, or everyone who's enemies with each other.
yeah.
You just have a lot of very thoughtful people who have let us spend so much time shooting them and their lives. And yeah, it's again just really amazing how they all work out. And then we've been shooting also for the past 2 years too. And again, like the season 3 wraps up about spring of 2023, and there's so many amazing characters and stories that have continued to happen. There's so much, I'm sure, some or all of it you're following in the big wave world since events have happened. And, again, younger surfers who people haven't even met yet, who are amazing characters that we've been shooting for a while, that, just continues to blow my mind how it can expand.
Do you ever totally shut down production, or are crews always on standby?
There are days we're not shooting. I mean, from about early to mid-October to the end of March, I mean, we're shooting, all day long with anywhere from 6 to 16 cameras on a day, the upper end being when we're shooting action and surf. But we've just got people, Verite camera, people holding cameras in Nazare or following surfers around the world for that entire time. And then that's the big wave season in Europe. And then the rest of the year, we're not always shooting, but we're always available if something happens, and just try to shoot any major stuff. But from October to March, it's a huge operation, and not just the shooters, but the editors, and just the way we make the show is just documenting life really in this fishing village in Portugal, and to become a big operation.
Yeah, no, it's incredible.
Yeah.
Logistically challenging.
Yeah,
Um,
fun. I mean, even just shooting surf. I mean, there's something. I get the addiction to it. The addiction, not just the feeling in the water, but the addiction to like checking the weather, to feeling like you've scored something when it works out, even if you're just watching the surf. Uh, there's a lifestyle and part of it that again, you can see what I'm in it for. I love going to dinner after the big swell day with all the surfers, and like you just get to see everyone like after that decompression starts to happen. And
I forgot the original question, but
There wasn't one. Congratulations. You guys have done a phenomenal job. You've reinvigorated my interest in big wave surfing and in Garrett and just in general kind of health, lifestyle.
thanks.
Just to see Garrett kind of doing it at his level, at his age. And I feel like the success of the show has probably made him recommit to his health and fitness and being able to do it into an older age too. So,
Maybe it's so hard for me to imagine him not doing it. It just I'm so jealous and in awe of his energy. It's so hard for me to, and I think Nicole says this in a lot of ways too. It's just I can't imagine him not doing that. And I'm glad it brings your interest to big wave surfing. I hope it brings others. It's an amazing sport. There's the weather makes it hard to follow on a regular basis, but
I know.
it just really is an amazing sport. It's also one of those things, maybe, that the narrative kind of storytelling we do, I think works really well with the sport in a way it doesn't with others, because the sport is so hard to time and schedule, that because we're allowed to shrink time and tell these stories. I don't know, I've just been thinking about that recently, how bound up big wave surfing is with storytelling itself, in a way other sports aren't. And we're very lucky. Very lucky they let us in.
Cool. Well, I'm grateful for it. And like I said, I think there's rich characters in surfing. And so I'm always appreciative of when somebody has like a real kind of caring, artful eye to help tell their stories. So
Thanks.
well done, man. Thank you.
Appreciate you watching it, and on everyone who watches it. And I will say also, like, I don't, even though a lot of surfers probably listen to this, it's not just a show for surfers. I don't think any of us think of it as a show about surfing. It's certainly in the world of surfing, but it's about people trying to do something heroic and inspiring and beautiful, and beautiful to photograph too. So anyway, everyone who's listening to this is probably a surfer already interested in it, but they can tell their friends that aren't too.
You're right, though. Like in the surf world, there's investments into like media projects, and everybody is always hopeful that, oh, this will be the big thing that breaks out into the mainstream and gets, because our audience is so limited of
Yeah.
people who care about surfing, and none of it ever does. This is one of those things that has. And I have people telling me about it, people who know that I'm into surfing, extended family members or something, they'll reach out to me and just be like, have you heard of 100 Foot Wave? We're watching that.
What do
It's
you think
amazing.
that it is about it that's helped it transcend that?
Well, I mean, the human interest element. I think that men and women riding mountains is compelling in and of itself.
Yeah.
But like you said, if it's all surf footage, that doesn't quite translate to the end audience. So it absolutely is the human interest element. But I think maybe Chris is the one to thank for this, but there's a kind of delicate way to showcase human interest to really engage the viewer. And in the surf world, when surfers try to tell the stories, it just seems to be almost like sensationalized for some reason. And so you guys are able to do it in a really delicate way. I mean, entering the narrative with Garrett's background of growing up in a commune and all of that stuff was just so fascinating, regardless of surfing, like, so kind of easing in that way and caring about the family and all that stuff. I mean, you're sold. And then when you see them riding the mountains, that is, of course, visually stunning,
Yeah.
but it's the human interest element for sure.
Yeah. Special shout out to our action team, Laurent Pujol, in the water, and drones,
Insane.
action camera shooting, and shooting all that stuff. That
Yeah.
stuff is not easy. And for Laurent in particular, he's out there on the water with the surfers doing it. Anything in the show you want to see more of, less of, things you're curious about in the
I mean,
future?
I honestly could definitely do deep dives into a lot of the side characters, you know.
Yeah.
So I don't know if there's spin-off series potentially involved there, but
Yeah.
I think Justine DuPont's story has definitely been overlooked for a long time.
She's amazing. She
Yeah.
is incredible. I love also Fred David, her partner too. So he's so fascinating, and they're just both such good people too.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And she's
Awesome.
a ridiculous athlete and surfer. Yeah, watching it, I remember at the beginning when we started this, and you can cut me off if this is boring or over time, but I remember, one of the drone shooters could, show me how he was doing impressions of the different surfers' stances. And, like I'm watching it, I can't tell anyone apart at the beginning, from hundreds of yards away. And Justine, I think, was the first one where I was like, oh, wait, that's now, and that's Justine out there. It's just like such a iconic stance. And anyway, now I'm better with other folks and it starts to, make a lot more sense, but love watching her surf. And still, maybe my favorite wave of all time in the show is, I think it was the end of the first season trailer, and Laurent shot it, and it was Justine on a wave, massive wave that just like looks like it's reaching after her and chasing her. And so beautiful wave out of Cortez Bank. I mean, many beautiful waves, but her and Kadi in particular had some amazing looking waves.
Well, when I saw that session go down a couple of years ago, just
Yeah.
on social media and stuff, and then there was commentary that your guys' camera crew was there, I was like, thank goodness. Because so many of these sessions happen and we get kind of glimpses of it, but not a comprehensive kind of telling of the story. So I was
Yeah.
glad to hear that.
Episode 3 of the season, which is the Cortez Bank episode, just really epic. And I got lucky enough to be on that boat and just being part of a mission and seeing it out there. And yeah, Kadi has an amazing barrel, and Justine has an amazing giant wave out there. And it is just beautiful. Like just a great episode. I'm really happy for people to see it. And I'm really happy the surfers scored too, because,
Yeah.
I know people have gone out to Cortez before and had to gone 10 hours out on a boat and then went 10 hours home without scoring. And, we got very lucky.
Yeah, completely. Well, for the record, I did try to watch the season. I just couldn't navigate through the screeners.
I believe me, I get it. Well, season 2 airs tonight. Episode 2 airs tonight. Episode 3 with Cortez is next week, and there's 5 episodes in the season. So if you watch it, you have more thoughts, email me. Let me know.
Okay.
Let me know what you would love to know. And yeah,
Yeah, and if you ever,
really appreciate everyone watching it.
of course, yeah, and if you ever want to do a deeper dive into the surf world, reach out. I've
I
got
will,
I've got
for
tons
sure.
of
I mean,
figures and characters that could lead you to.
For sure. Yeah. Anyone, I mean, listen, we've talked a lot about like where else could, at the beginning, 100-foot wave's a thing. And now it's become to me like an idea that's captured in a lot of these people in various ways. And yeah, just always trying to think about what is, there's other big waves out there for sure that people haven't ridden or probably haven't even seen. And yeah, always interested in how we can expand our world too. So, if they have my info too, you can always reach out and just let me
This
know what you.
this isn't a pitch at all, but I also feel like probably every pitch references Chef's Table at some point, but like that could be, there are so many compelling characters from all around the world. And that could be 60-minute kind of profile pieces on each of these people. You would never run out of stories.
Surfers or more like, the people.
Surfers,
around
shapers.
the surfers. Yeah.
Yes, surfers, shapers, photographers, kind of. I mean, they all surf, even the shapers surf and all that sort of stuff. But they're not necessarily professional surfers. They're almost the least interesting, to be perfectly honest. But I've envisioned that, just through my interviewing of people, we just do such deep dives, and their lives are so compelling, their stories, and committed decades to traveling, it's stuff like that they just have documented so much of it that you could pull.
Yeah, there's
all that
something
stuff.
to it. I mean, any of these people who are the best of what they're doing, and it's an unknown field, and I just think that's always fascinating to see. And, part of the reason, in addition to how it's shot, but why Chef's Table works. And, but yeah, if there, if it's people that you've done shows about that you think are good to listen to, or just stories that you think are good to dig into, we're just always interested in more stuff, and we'll see if there's more, more of the show beyond too. But always looking for other waves out there too. I mean, we don't affect the show. The surfers go wherever they choose to, but it's fun to follow those stories when they get onto them.
Yeah.
Or
Awesome.
other people are too. So, if there's people that we don't cover, but someone has a crazy mission where they think with good reason they're going to score something gigantic, I think that kind of thing is interesting to us. So.
Have you tracked Nathan Florence's vlog and what he's doing?
I track him like a little bit. I follow him on Instagram, but I don't think I've looked at his blog. But should I?
Yeah, I mean, so basically, the Florence family, there's 3 brothers, right, on the North Shore. Their mom's a fascinating story too. So she moved from New Jersey, went out to the North Shore, kind of like a hippie lifestyle thing, raised 3 boys on the North Shore. One of them has become the greatest surfer in the world. That's John, Nathan's brother. He's won 2 world titles, Olympic medalist, all that sort of stuff. his younger brother, Nathan, did not pursue competitive surfing. Instead, has dedicated his life to getting the biggest barrels around the world. They track the swells, of course. They're purple blobs on the map. So he calls it the Purple Blob Tour, where he's just chasing those swells around the world and has been able to monetize it through sponsorships based on his social media following. But he's literally like in Ireland one week, in Mexico the next week, down to Australia, Tasmania, back to Hawaii. And for the last 2 or 3 years has been getting 20-foot barrels for throughout the entire year.
Are they in Hawaii most of the time or usually traveling?
He lives in Hawaii, but they're only there during the winter time.
Yeah.
So right now they're in Mexico. But it's basically the concept of the film, The Endless Summer, where they were chasing waves around the summer, but this is throughout the entire year.
Would you watch a 100-foot wave Florence Brothers?
Totally.
Yeah.
They are a fascinating family.
Yeah. I'm sure it's a good idea from the little that I know, I mean, they're like John's clearly ridiculous, but yeah. All right, I'm gonna check it out more. I'm gonna check out the vlog. I haven't seen it, but yeah, I'm sure there is something to it.
Yeah. Like I said, there's lots of versions of that, but they're a no-brainer for sure.
I know. I need to talk to them about it. It's hard. There's so much stuff once you start peeling back a little bit, but I do need to talk to them. And and you got let me know if there's other stuff too that or stuff I wouldn't know about.
Cool.
Yeah,
And
I'm not just saying that. Love, ideas come from people who are thinking about these things and think of it when they happen to be talking to me or someone else. So
yeah, and I'll close by just saying I also love Too Old to Die Young. That was really well done too.
Thanks for watching it. Yeah, I'll give a shout out to anyone who wants to watch that on Amazon now. And yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah, that was great.
Awesome, man.
All
Well,
right.
I really appreciate it. Thank you for watching the show and thank you for talking about it too. I heard you talking about it with Landon on the other podcast too. And yeah, I just appreciate the shout outs.
Yeah, gladly. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, man. Great to meet you.
All right, you too. Thanks.
Surf Splendor.